Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for today's webinar, Technology-Enabled Working Capital Improvement Strategies. Just a few housekeeping notes before we begin. For any technical questions, please use the chat box and I'll respond right away. If you face any issues with your audio, click on the phone icon that will be on your screen right above the chat window to receive teleconference information. For those of you who have called in, to ensure top quality, all your lines have been muted. If you're disconnected at any point of time, you can log in again using the details that were sent to you in your initial confirmation email. If you continue to experience difficulties, you can write to us at emma.kessler@zycus.com and we'll get back to you. We encourage you to ask questions throughout the webinar. Please type your questions into the chat box and hit the send button to submit them. This program will be recorded and you'll receive an on-demand material shortly post the webinar. Moving on, let's introduce our speaker for today, Mr. Phil McDonald. With years of experience gained through working with global organizations, Phil is skilled at managing world-class tools for sourcing, spend analysis, contracts, vendor management, and e-procurement. His portfolio boasts of expertise in voice, data, and software as a service. Phil has been aiding clients to communicate and implement strategic visions across their enterprise and has attained savings of over $57 million over the span of his career. At this point, I'd like to hand it over to Phil to take over the webinar.
Thank you, and welcome everyone to the webinar. I'm glad you were able to attend. You know, my experience with Zycus goes back to 2012 when I first worked with Zycus in implementing their spend analytics and their contract management tool. And in today's Wall Street Journal, a quote from Robert Lynch, who's the CEO from Pandora, said, "You need to make sure you're always innovating." And one of the things that I know about Zycus is that they have continued to innovate over the years since I've had my relationship with them. And one of the exciting things to talk about now is their latest innovation, which is about their e-invoicing tool. And so part of our agenda today is to talk about how does the automated portal work, how can your company get approval to buy this type of tool, and what are your account payable top priorities, challenges, capabilities, how the AP procurement link is important to you, what are the 3 elements that aid better management of working capital, ways you can leverage accounts payable to optimize working capital, and what are some of the metrics and tools that help help you work to optimize your working capital. And then we'll go to a short case study. If you look at this slide 6 now, we have the display about the Zycus e-invoicing suite. This solution is supplier facing, and as part of it is supplier facing that includes the supplier information management and self-service portal. Through these portals, not only are suppliers able to upload and register their information, but they're also able to manage transactions with you, their customer. They're able to receive and confirm purchase orders, generate electronic invoices, and track their invoice approval and payment status. Your accounts payable organization will have automated matching capabilities, and you'll be able to automate your workflow approvals to manage exceptions and approve invoices to be moved on to the OK to pay stage. In addition, you'll be able to have full reporting analytics, including dynamic discounting capture, which is really a portal that will show you how you're doing in terms of obtaining the discounts that are important to your organization. The bottom line is that there are some advantages of the Zycus solution because it's a fully paperless solution. So it goes beyond some of the normal steps of what you go through today, like scanning your invoices or other OCR type approaches, to make it seamless and really makes it a digital accounting system. It will help you more smoothly onboard suppliers, so that way you have a database of your suppliers in conjunction with your ERP system and now for your invoice payments. Slide 7, we show how the portal works. So you have the self-service portal where the supplier can put their profile in. They can view the purchase orders that they're getting from your ERP system, and then they can also validate and resolve issues, through the tool, and you'll be able to track payments. And I can tell you from being in sourcing and procurement that for me to be able to look into a tool to find out what the process of my invoice is with accounts payable, it's beneficial because many times I'll have to send an inquiry into accounts payable to ask them the question, but having access to this portal would make it a lot easier for me to answer a supplier's question. And because I do a lot of vendor management, it would help me keep my vendors satisfied with our process of payment. And I can tell you, one of the reasons why vendors work well with procurement, how we really enhance our relationship is by having our payments made on time through the accounts payable department. So really, you're a key part of the function for procurement to keep our vendors satisfied. So thank you. Now the next question is, yeah, these tools look great, Phil, but what do we do to get this implemented through our company? And from what I wanted to do is just share a little bit about how you can get this invoice automation. The problem is companies many times won't authorize the expenditure. So the solution is, you have to go out and gather and document your requirements. Your requirements are very important. What are your requirements today versus what they used to be? Things have changed now in an electronic age. So gathering your requirements and being able to list all of them out is a good first step. The next thing is to identify suppliers or industry groups that list competing suppliers for this kind of automation. The reason why you want to do this is because when you go to your other stakeholders within the organization, you want to have a good selection of suppliers that really can do a good job for bringing these types of tools to your organization. Then you need to engage with multiple partners within your organization. Partner with procurement, partner with sourcing, partner with finance, your CFO. Bring your requirements, who you think would be good suppliers to them, and they will help you bridge the gap and be able to help bring this business case forward to your leadership to help you attain success. Because the result will, with you and your partners, will be able to put together the business case that will convince your company to move forward with invoice automation solution. Without working together as a team, you may really you may never get to the point of having full invoice automation. Now, some of the next things are from Arden Partners I wanted to go over to kind of give you a few more ideas of what your peers are thinking and considering regarding their top priorities for 2017. So number one is to reduce the invoice processing costs. But also, there needs to be a better way to link your purchase-to-pay processes and systems. And this is where this e-invoicing platform comes in to help you. We also want to improve reporting and analytics. 32% say they want to improve collaboration, communication with procurement. And finally, extend payment terms and optimize. So, these are the top 5 categories for 2017. And then your challenges are listed out: improving processes, on-time payments, reducing paper, reducing costs, internal and external communication. So this is where the tool comes in and really helps you do that. Help tax and regulatory issues or challenges, cash management, payable visibility, spend analytics, and days payable outstanding. The capabilities that AP accounts payable teams need to move to the next level are new or improved technology, and that's why we're talking about this today. Improve exception handling and root cause analysis, executive support to improve accounts payable operation, which is what we discussed a little earlier, how to get that support. Better links to procurement, which is part of what this tool brings, better enterprise-wide communication plan, and better or more frequent supplier collaboration. So part of the tool will actually allow you to communicate back and forth what your expected discount should be, why, so why you're taking them on the invoice, and they may come back and collaborate with you saying, well, that one wouldn't apply for this reason, but this way you have a tool to actually document the collaboration between the two, you as a purchaser and accounts payable and the supplier. And so whenever the final invoice settlement comes through, you'll have a history of what you've had for a discussion. Now, we have a lot of different data that's in our organizations in silos. And this is an obstacle for growth because without having a link to bring these together, you can't really grow and automate your processes. So you've got your top AP challenges and priorities, but now you need the capabilities also to boost yourselves to the next level. And so this is where you need these links with the invoicing tool to be able to automate things for you. And the implications of not having these links means that you spend more time trying to match information, getting invoice approvals, tracking, resolving exceptions, and hand keying invoices. You also miss savings opportunities because you're not really able to always meet the timing necessary to get the invoices paid on time to get the discounts that you're able to receive if you paid on time. And you have decreased visibility to the entire purchase to pay or procure to pay cycle. So, having a tool like this will give you some reporting to give you extra visibility of what's actually going on within your environment. And then you also have increased cost for processing invoices. So these are all the different things that you miss without having a good link between your procurement and your invoicing. So AP automation is the silo breaker. As we discussed, you'll get increased visibility of your payment data. You'll start to see, your performance between your supplier and your relationship management improve because you won't have these nagging lags of missing payments or disputes over the cost of what you should pay on an invoice. Your cycle time for payment will be reduced as well, and you'll have increased accuracy. The three elements that facilitate better management of working capital are reduce the processing time taken from invoice to payments, capture more discounts, and minimize time spent reviewing and approving documents. I know that from my past, many times you'll have new managers stepping into a position where they're receiving invoices that they had no interaction with in terms of creating the purchase. Now they get an invoice that comes into their purview, and they have no idea what the history was with that supplier and what kind of payments are made. Having a tool like this, you would easily be able to train the manager on, here are your suppliers that you're responsible for, and here's the payment history. It'll be really a benefit within your organization because we all have turnover and have something to deal with, in terms of training new managers that come online. Then overcoming hurdles. So we're going to have improved accuracy and visibility. Our payment process will be streamlined. Manual intervention will be reduced where we have to go contacting somebody to approve an invoice because now we have things automated. People are in the workflow for invoice automation and approval. We'll be able to do a better job forecasting our cash, and from a finance perspective, that's going to really be helpful because you'll be able to show how much cash is going out by week, by month, by quarter, and that'll be really helpful to your CFO. You'll be able to increase your visibility of payment tracking, and run reports on that. And you'll be able to set and monitor your savings goals. So part of the portal that's within the tool, you'll be able to actually see your savings and your objectives being met as you move forward automatically. So you'll be able to leverage your accounts payable and working capital by going paperless to standardize and automate labor-intensive processes like PO invoice matching, duplicate checks, approval workflows, etc. You'll reduce the invoice processing cycle time, and you'll be able to review the current process for improvement opportunities. You know, you'll be able to see all the different vendors that are being paid, and perhaps you may be able to see where procurement and sourcing should be looking at other vendors to bring into the mix, or one vendor is getting more payments than others. Maybe others are just on the periphery and should be eliminated. So you can now give some reporting back to your sourcing procurement people to show, hey, why are we even paying this vendor anything? We're hardly using them. Let's get them out of the system. You'll have audit trails, not just of the payments, but of your conversations with your suppliers. So somebody says, well, why did we pay 10% more on this invoice? You can show all the conversations you had and the justification for that. And you won't have to go through emails and other forms of communication to try to justify what the ultimate decision was. You have better visibility into contract terms and compliance. So you'll be able to see, okay, we were supposed to get a certain discount within our contract and be able to prove that you're getting it based on the invoice payments that you made. This slide is just for you to also look at some of the measurements that you'll get as part of this whole process. From a working capital performance, you're going to be able to see your cash conversion cycle, your days sales outstanding, days payable outstanding, days inventory outstanding, net working capital value, and net working capital as a percentage of sales. On the accounts payable side, you'll be able to see early and late payments, spend per term, order to settlement cycle, block payments, contract term leakage, POs versus non-PO based invoices, and average spend per supplier category. Ardent Partners also provides this as an information slide to show best in class versus all others. So if you're best in class, you're going to have standardized AP processes across the enterprise. You're going to have 2- or 3-way matching capabilities. You're going to have the ability to process invoices straight through. You're going to have the ability to automate route invoices for approval. You're going to have the ability to match invoices to contracts or payment plans. And finally, you'll have the ability to measure key accounts payable metrics. One of our case studies is a private insurer's journey where they had SAP as their ERP system, and they used it for the invoice workflow processing and payments, but it had some limitations. The accounts payable team still had to do extensive manual work to send and receive, archive invoices, manage approval processes. There was no real single source of truth for the invoice and supplier data, and ad hoc supplier onboarding process had problems. You know, they had incomplete supplier details, and it caused risk because the suppliers weren't necessarily validated prior to going into the system. So the solution was to bring in a system that had flexibility to help manage workflows and was configurable for their organization. They used the Intelligent Cloud OCR to receive the invoice data, and then that automatically brought it into the system for them. They had real-time data capture and were able to do automatic updating. They were able to increase their savings due to dynamic discounting, and their supplier onboarding and enablement through the supplier portal really helped get things done for them, because there's nothing worse in accounts payable than getting an invoice from a supplier that you have no record of. So procurement and sourcing, they're responsible to get you that information, And having this portal, getting the suppliers to be able to register in the portal will really help automate the process. The results of this implementation, they shaved 1/3 off their invoice approval cycle times, and they brought a 1% savings or prompt payment discounts on 1/3 of the total spend. They reduced duplicate and overpayments alone, netted $100,000 in savings. They reduced the vendor management FTE support by 87%. They automated 3-way invoice managing and saved 40% of the time spent by accounts payable on invoice processing and exception management. They enabled strategic sourcing cost reduction efforts through accurate line items, spend visibility, and they boosted stakeholder satisfaction net promoter score from a neutral score to a plus 10%. So that's the story that we wanted to present to you today, and now we want to open this up for questions. If anyone has a question, we'll be glad to discuss those now.
Thank you so much, Phil. So we do have a few questions. So one says, what do you think are a few essentials for the AP department to be valued as a strategic contributor to an organization's overall objective?
Could you repeat the question? It broke up a little bit.
Yeah, so it says, what do you think are a few essentials for the AP department to be valued as a strategic contributor to the organization's vision?
All right, so what are some factors that are essential for the organization to recognize the accounts payable department, is the way I understand the question. And
yeah,
I think, you know, from the way I've worked within organizations, large organizations, accounts payable has always been at the end of the food chain, where, you know, we just want you to get the invoice paid. I think what is important is if you can establish a relationship with your stakeholders, the managers and leadership within the organization that rely upon you getting these payments out in a timely manner, and perhaps establishing some quarterly meetings to show what you're doing for the organization. You know, what have we done for you lately in terms of bringing efficient payable operations and how that's affected the vendor management situation, or how it's affected discounts or save money. And then from there, you'd be able to say, but we could do more. And we can also make your lives easier. I think, you know, if you were to survey within your organization, what were some things that people would like to see improve with, you know, in relation to accounts payable, you may find that these automation processes would be important. And then that would help you build your business case toward getting the account payable automation tools authorized and put in place, because you are a critical part of the organization. I think a lot of people just don't realize that.
Right. So one more question that we have is, what do you think are the main barriers to the adoption of technologies like AP automation and e-invoicing?
Okay, what are the main barriers to this adoption? So I think the main barrier is lack of awareness that these tools exist, lack of understanding of the advantages of the tools, and I think that's where you need to, in order to build the awareness, you have to put together your requirements of what you need from these tools, you know, and what they will do to enhance the, you know, the situation within your own organization, and bring that to your partners and say, can you help us get this kind of tool in place? Because the sourcing and procurement people are the ones that really will be your best friends, you know, trying to help you get these types of things in place. But they need to be aware that you have a need. They need to be aware of what your requirements are. They need to be aware of who the suppliers are that you think could help you, you know, Zycus being one of them. So I think, you know, those barriers can be overcome, but it's not always possible to do it on your own, and my recommendation is to partner with other people within your organization that do this for a living, that you know, are used to bringing in new suppliers, helping build the justification cases, because this may be outside of your normal business function, and so work with the experts that do this for a living.
Right. So when we're talking about alliances here, a question reads whether a standalone AP automation project would be better for them, or would an end-to-end procure-to-pay suite would work well for their organization, is the question.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So that comes down to the question of should we do a best-of-breed type solution where we get the best ERP system, the best invoicing system, you know, the best spend analytics system, or should we go ahead and get a suite of tools that all work together? So in my experience, I chose to bring the ERP system stayed separate, and then we were able to bring in the Zycus tool of suites for procurement and then payment. So it was sort of a hybrid of having some tools from one supplier, some from another. So the key is, when you're looking at this, is the integration. How well will these tools work together? And then, you know, if you go with an entire suite, if somebody says they can do the whole thing, let's say the ERP supplier says they can do the whole thing, well, you have to assess how well do their own tools work together. Sometimes suppliers will buy different companies and try to meld them together. So while it's under one banner for a supplier to list all these products and services, they may not have done a good job of integrating them. So you really need to do some demonstrations and do some evaluations in terms of, does that suite really perform all the things that I want it to do? And that's why understanding your requirements up front will help you do a better job evaluating whether or not that complete suite of tools is going to meet your needs or not, or whether you need to do a hybrid solution or just do all best-of-breed type solutions. Again, but the problem with the best-of-breed is, you know, now you have to integrate and link together all these different systems, and that becomes a challenge if, you know, one tool doesn't want to work well with another company's tool. So hopefully that covers that answer and gives you something to think about.
Sure, that sounded great. The last question. So the question reads, how do you build an effective business case for AP automation?
Okay, so all business cases need to start out with, front page would be the executive summary. So it kind of gives an overview to the executive as to what you're there for today and why. The next slide then would be to talk about the current state. Here's the way we're operating today. Here's what's good. Here's what's bad. And then the next slide would talk about future state. Future state would talk about, okay, here's where we're going to migrate to, and maybe you'd even have a slide that would show the workflow today versus the workflow tomorrow. Then you'd have the financial statement, and you'd talk about here's the cost of the tools that we're looking at. So you might have 3 different suppliers, 3 different costs, and then you would show your return on investment, because everyone's going to want a return on investment, and you should get a return on investment in this. You should be able to show that you have a reduction of costs, or you're getting greater discounts, you're reducing time, and unfortunately that may mean staff reduction, but those are the things that would go into the business case. And then the other thing that I would always recommend is that part of your business case would include a sign-off from different people within the organization that you've worked with. You know, that procurement has signed off on this, finance has signed off on it, that, you know, you within your accounts payable has signed off on this business case, and anyone else that may be necessary, you know, IT, you know, have they signed off on it if there's integration work. So when you're bringing it forward, you've already shown that you collaborate with the other people within your organization. It makes a much stronger business case so that when it comes to your chief executive officer, they're saying, hey, this person's really done their homework and really gotten everyone involved within the organization. So this should go through more smoothly.
Sure. I think that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much, Phil, for taking time out and delivering this webinar. I'd like to thank all our attendees who've come and attended our webinar. If you have any further questions, you can use the contact information that's given on the screen right now. Thank you so much.